even though he's probably going to get slammed for it, I think he's going to get a lot of kickback, or maybe he won't. Maybe they just won't even acknowledge it. I heard someone compare it to Any Given Sunday or something like that. There was a football movie, Any Given Sunday or something like that. And it was compared to that movie. I haven't watched that movie either, but something about not being able to understand what happened in this movie. Depending on your idea of football, you're not going to understand it. You're not going to understand the experience from someone else's perspective if you're looking at it from a whole different vantage point. First of all, I'm going to say that. And then, secondly, um, the fact that there is a lot of the dark side of what happens behind the scenes that's being, highlighted. It's going to rub people the wrong way, and so I don't think he put a lot of time into it because of that. I don't think he's expecting to get a lot out of this. I think he's just using this as a tool to really kind of bring this discussion back to the table. What's going on here, right? What's going on here? And why are we still in the same place that we've been in for centuries? How long have we been playing football? I don't know. But why is it that there is still no ownership? You know, why is everything still being gate kept? Why is there still the high incidence of, you know, the disregard for the health and the bodies, right? And so I think that's why this is being brought to light. And then on the other side of this, we have all of the symbolism that come out in when it comes to football. One of the things that we hear a lot, especially now, it's like there's just a lot of talk about, um, you know, this being a very God-fearing country, and how we have these different perspectives, these different sides. Some are very reserved. And then there's the other side that, believes in being very liberal, you know. And I don't like to get into politics and all of that, but there's a lot of talk about what we should and what we should not be doing, and being able to weigh it against, the fact that this is a country that was founded on religion and the word of God. But when we look at things like football, there's some things to really look at, you know, um, because first of all, it's like when we talk about idols, right? Not putting anything before God, when we look at all of this symbolism, and the fact that there is this huge, not that it's a sin to be wealthy, it's not, but to put anything above God, right? That's something to take a look at. And so, in many ways, football is something to kind of determine whether or not we've made it our God, because we actually hold it in a very high esteem. I don't know if there was ever a time where we wouldn't play football on Sunday, but when it comes to Sunday, you have more people at the football game than you do in church, right? I'm just being real, just being honest. Now, on the other hand, we have things that we say we should not be engaging in, and we call it, we have many names for it. We call it deviling in, divination. Some people call it witchcraft and all of that kind of stuff. But when we really look at it, like it's almost like the pot calling the kettle black. It all boils down really to the same things. It really does. And I take a look at it, and we're running, up and down this pasture of grass, wanting to hurt each other, carrying this thing. They call it a pigskin, even though it's not made of pigskin. That's just what they call it. I don't know why they call it that. It's actually made of cowhide, but it's made of animal, right? It's made of the cow, right? which is in many terms, we look at the cow or the bull, um, and it's associated with practices around Baal, and we're looking at the wealth, the money, the notoriety, the prestige, the having a good time. Like, there's a lot to look at there. There's a lot to look at there, and if we're going to point out, whether or not certain things align, that's one of the things that we can consider, whether or not it aligns with the Word of God. And some people will say, well, that has nothing to do with the Word of God. Oh, but it does. It does. Like I said, on any given Sunday, you will find more people at the game, right, than you find in church. And I'm not one to be, religious. I don't really, um, try to categorize things in that way. I'm more on the liberal side, just to really be honest. I feel like we need to live and let people live. I feel like whatever you believe, that's what you should hold yourself accountable to. Believe in something and hold yourself accountable to that. Like, I don't have enough capacity to carry my own convictions and someone else's. So why am I worried about what it is that you're believing, right? If it's not harming other people. That's how I feel. Now, you may not feel like that. That's fine. But if we are going to be that way, then we need to really examine some things that are still taking place in society. It may not be as blatant as saying, well, I want you to fight to the death, and we're going to watch, and we're going to pay, and we're going to bet and see who wins. But that's what it is. The same thing that was going on a long time ago when we were still considered property. We didn't have the right to say no. I'm not fighting my brother, and I'm not going to fight him to death, right? Even though we do have the right to say no, right, there's other things in place, like things that are happening, like poverty. Nobody wants to be in poverty. Of course, we're going to say yes to $1 million contract, right? But does that make it right? No, it doesn't. If you go and hire a hitman and tell him, I want you to go take this person out, I'm going to pay you $500,000. It's work. It's going to feed his family. But is that going to be justified? Does that make it right because he's getting paid and he's going to be able to feed his family? Not necessarily. Not when we look at it from a moralistic standpoint. No, it does not. But because this has been ingrained in the system, in our minds, in the very culture, right, we no longer have an eye to actually measure it, to see if it measures up. We've just come to a place where we, unconsciously accept it as just being a part of what's happening. But I feel like Jordan Peele has done a good thing, because it is something that we do. There's a lot of things that we need to take a look at, basically. So I appreciate Jordan Peele. Thank you, Jordan. That's all I'm going to say.